All right, hello everybody. This is our third video, and this one we're going to be going over double movement. There are only a couple of questions on this one, but I know you want to get them all. So, and these are the toughest ones for sure, just because they take a little bit of extra time. Okay, so the first one I want to talk about lump sum tax. Whenever you have a lump sum tax, it looks really complex, but there's a huge shortcut that can save you about a minute plus of time on the test if you know it. All right, so we have lump sum tax. This simply means that government spending is going up at the same amount as taxes. So I'm building a $10 billion stadium, right? And I'm raising taxes by $10 billion to pay for it. So I'm not actually going into debt at all. It's budget neutral. So I'm raising all the money I need through taxes. Well, what impact's that going to have on GDP? And the tendency is to say none, right? You're like, well, 10 billion went up, 10 billion went down, they offset each other, we're good. But that's not actually the case because government spending has more of a multiplied impact than taxes. And so simply remember that it eliminates the multiplied effect, gets rid of it, right? So if I have a $100 billion increase and it's paid for with taxes, so I raise taxes by $100 billion, 100 billion up, 100 billion up, what's going to happen? There's not going to be a multiplied effect. It's simply going to be $100 billion increased GDP, right? So $10 billion increase paid for by taxes is going to increase GDP by 10 billion because raising the taxes gets rid of all of the multiplied effect. I'm going to prove it to you, but just remember that and you should be good. They say taxes went up by 10 million, spending went up by 10 million. What's the impact? The answer is GDP went up by 10 million because the multiplied effect is gone. It's just that initial 10 million that went in that has an effect. All right. So here we go. So we have government spending of $200 billion. MPC is 0.75. I pay for it with a lump sum tax. So I know it's change in government spending times my spending multiplier equals change in GDP. And then I also know it's change in taxes times my tax multiplier equals change in GDP. Sorry if you can't read that. Those are my equations. And I just start plugging numbers in, right? I know that my MPC is 0.75, which means MPS is 0.25, which means my multiplier is 1 over 0.25, or 4. So spending multiplier is 4. And I know my tax multiplier is 1 less than that every time, so tax multiplier is 3. My change in government spending is $200 billion. And my change in taxes is an increase of $200 billion. The question is, when I increase taxes, is that positive or negative? It's actually negative. So this is negative, this is positive. So what's the impact going to be? Well, this positive is going to result in $800 increase in GDP. And this negative is going to result in a negative $600 billion decrease in GDP. So 800 up, 600 down, the difference is $200 billion, which was my initial change in government spending. Right? So I can skip all of this by simply remembering when something's paid for with a lump sum tax, it eliminates the multiplied effect. So if a $100 billion increase paid for with a lump sum tax, the impact on GDP, $100 billion every single time. Promise. All right, let's do the double but not equal. If we have two changes in spending, what's going to happen? It's actually, we use the same kind of algorithm here. So it's really the same idea. It's two things happening at the same time. So always separate, calculate them independently, and then find the difference. And then you'll be fine. Just like we did up here, calculate independently. So this is change in government spending by 50 and investment falls by 20. Both of these are spending. So I'm going to use my spending multiplier for both. I only use the tax multiplier when it says taxes. So I know my change in government spending times my spending multiplier equals my change in GDP. So my change in government spending here was 50. It's my spending multiplier. Well, it says my MPC is 0.8, which means my MPS is 0.2, which means my multiplier is 1 over 0.2, or 5. So my spending multiplier is 5. So my impact on GDP is positive $250 billion. So we're up 250. Down here, investment is also spending. So change in investment times my spending multiplier, still going to have a multiplied impact because that's money going into our economy, equals change in GDP. So it says my investment fell by $20 billion. So this is negative 20. My spending multiplier, still my spending multiplier I'm using here is 5. So my change in GDP is negative 100. So what's my balance? How much was GDP impacted? It's simply the difference between these two. GDP went up by 250 and down by 100, so it ended up going up by $150 billion. And that's the difference. Okay, double impact shouldn't be all that bad. Okay, done with this video. We only have one more to go, and then you're all set.